Welcome to Cross Country. We begin with a Fox News alert as America names a new murder capital. Crime and murders are surging in New Orleans, and elected officials seem to care more about the criminals than their own community. Their constituents continue to beg for help, but those in charge are not listening. Over the last year, murders have increased by 34%. Armed robberies have skyrocketed by nearly 50%, while carjackings, theft, and gun-related violence continues to climb as well. An American city that was once a jewel is now in total decay.
Street famous. Street famous. Street famous.
One of the most talked about cities on the internet in terms of culture, food, music, and vacationing is New Orleans. Rightfully so, as the city is in a class of its own. New Orleans offers endless opportunities for fun and entertainment, casting a global allure that brings more than 17 million visitors to the city a year.
Celebrating the power of New Orleans tourism, that was the reason for this celebration. It was a parade down Royal Street. It happened earlier today. The New Orleans hospitality industry used marching bands and stilt walkers to highlight National Travel and Tourism Week. In 2012, more than 9 million visitors generated $6 billion for our city. Those are the highest numbers, experts say, in nearly 10 years.
Culturally, New Orleans boasts an illicit hybrid of Black, French, and Spanish influences. Both the French and Spanish ruled the city before the United States would snatch it up, along with the rest of Louisiana in the 15 million Louisiana Purchase of 1803. The forced settlement of slaves from Africa and the West Indies would introduce their cultures to the Creole residents. One of the most critical things about New Orleans that cannot go without mention is the murder rate. Since the 1930s, New Orleans has ranked amongst the highest when it comes to homicides. From the early 90s to current, New Orleans will be ranked the murder capital an unheard of 11 times. In this video, we will take a deep dive into the mindset and what played a part of creating it. Out of the impoverished environments of New Orleans would rise a kill or be killed mindset. Kids that were raised in these environments would witness homicides on a regular basis, so much so that they often grew numb to the events that had taken place.
And over time, it becomes normal to where, somebody got killed around here, okay, whatever. And that's pretty much how it was growing up in the Magnolia Project.
In New Orleans, murder makes you popular. Killers are birthed generation after generation, becoming worse and worse each generation.
In New Orleans, murder make you popular. If you murder a few people, the women are going to love you. That's crazy. It sounds crazy. It is crazy, but that's New Orleans.
What is partly to blame, you may ask? The Louisiana Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 701. Let's break down Article 701 so that you will have a clearer understanding of how it fosters the kill or be killed mentality in the city of New Orleans. Section A reads, the state and the defendant have the right to a speedy trial. Section B reads, the time period for filing a bill of information or indictment after arrest shall be as follows. 1A, when a defendant is continued in custody subsequent to an arrest, an indictment or information shall be filed within 30 days of the arrest if the defendant is being held for a misdemeanor, and within 60 days of arrest if the defendant is being held for a felony.
I'm out here, I got 2 strikes, you know what I'm saying? They fuck with me right now, they could just put something on me, Lorel out of here, and go upbound.
2A, when a defendant is continued in custody subsequent to an arrest, an indictment shall be filed within 120 days of the arrest if the defendant is being held, for which the punishment may be death or life imprisonment.
What they doing, taking a nigga to jail? That's it, fuck nigga go to jail every 2 feet ahead. That nigga got fine money.
Continuation of 2A, when a defendant is not continued in custody subsequent to an arrest, an indictment or information shall be filed within 90 days of the arrest if the defendant is booked with a misdemeanor, and 150 days of the arrest if the defendant is booked with a felony. 2B, failure to institute prosecution as provided in subparagraph 1. This paragraph shall result in release of the defendant if, after contradictory hearing with the district attorney, just cause for the failure is not shown. If just cause is shown, the court shall reconsider bail for the defendant. Failure to institute prosecution as provided in this subparagraph shall result in the release of the bail obligation if, after contradictory hearing with the district attorney, just cause for the delay is not shown. Section C reads, upon filing a bill of information or indictment, the district attorney shall set the matter for arraignment within 30 days unless just cause for a longer delay is shown.
I lost my thumb out here, out in the Cali, got hit up with an AK, all in my back, bullet wounds, letting you know.
Section D reads as follows. A1, a motion by the defendant for a speedy trial in order to be valid must be accompanied by an affidavit by defendant's counsel certifying that the defendant and his counsel are prepared to proceed to trial within the delays set forth in this article, except as provided in subparagraph 3 of this paragraph after the filing of a motion for a speedy trial by the defendant and his counsel. The time period for commencement of trial shall be as follows. A, the trial of a defendant charged with a felony should commence within 120 days if he or she is continued in custody, and within 180 days if he or she is not continued in custody. B, the trial of a defendant charged with a misdemeanor shall commence within 30 days if he or she continued in custody, and within 60 days if he or she is not continued in custody.
Like that, you understand? And what else that melt for me too? All real to the bone. We cut throat and we straight up head busting. Ain't no secret. We getting how we live in this thing, you understand? Born and raised, you understand? Ain't no secret. Straight like that, you heard me?
2A, failure to commence trial within the time period provided above shall result in the release of the defendant without bail or in the discharge of the bail obligation if, after contradictory hearing with the district attorney, just cause for the delay is not shown.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this. I got 32 in my side, you understand? And I got 17 in my back pocket. So take it how you want.
A3, after a motion for speedy trial has been filed by the defendant, if the defendant files any subsequent motion which requires a contradictory hearing, the court may suspend in accordance with Article 580 or dismiss upon finding bad faith pending the speedy trial motion. In addition, the period of time within which the trial is required to commence, as set forth by Article 578, may be suspended in accordance with Article 580 from the time that the subsequent motion is filed by the defendant until the court rules upon such motion.
It's early right now, you understand? So fuck, we just come out and made this, you know? So just know, at the end of the day, believe that. I think we could just put everything on the ground, you hear me? At the end of the day, we gonna make this gonna be full up with money. You know? Just how to know you. Ain't too many ones in there either. Ain't no ones in there.
Section E reads as follows. Just cause as used in the article should include any grounds beyond the control of the state or the courts. Section F reads as follows. A motion for speedy trial filed by the defendant but not verified by the affidavit of his counsel shall be set for contradictory hearing within 30 days.
Damn, hey, the fuck we gonna do now?
In the year 2022, the city of New Orleans would again be declared the murder capital of the United States, according to the Metropolitan Crime Commission. The MCC stated when comparing the number of homicides with the population, the homicide rate in New Orleans was significantly higher than any other American city. Homicides were up by 46% from the same time the previous year and up 141% since 2019, all according to the MCC.
80% of the males that was in Angola came from New Orleans and also Jefferson Parish. And that's a hurtful thing. What is it that New Orleans and Jefferson Parish is doing to have our peers locked up like that?
The Metropolitan Crime Commission would also state that most of the violent crimes were being committed in two main police districts, the New Orleans East and Central City. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that just by doing the math, if crime is reduced by 50% in those two districts, you will be reducing violent crime by 25% in the entire city. of New Orleans.
Boys, you gotta have that CBR on your arm, you hear me?
You gotta get it, read it and weak. 70126 from East New Orleans to the wild East New Orleans.
Official data would show that New Orleans reached about 221 homicides in the year 2021. In September of 2022, the city would already be very close to reaching that number. The MCC will report that the NO had 208 homicides with 3 months to go in 2022. New Orleans city officials and residents still point to a corrupt and overwhelmed police department as a major factor for the rise in homicides throughout the city. Records would show that the city has about 50 to 60% it actually needs to offer adequate protection for the residents.
The number of boots-on-the-ground police officers continues to shrink in New Orleans.
Yet, keeping up with the rate of departures continues to be a big struggle for the NOPD. And Paul Murphy is following that story for tonight. He's joining us now in the studio with the latest on these pretty disturbing numbers.
Yeah, Katie, Devin, the Police Association of New Orleans says that the NOPD has already lost about 10 officers since the beginning of the year, and we are learning that only 1% of the men and women who applied to be an NOPD officer last year were ultimately hired by the department.
A chief complaint among New Orleans police officers would be the 2012 agreement that gives a federal judge authority to oversee police reforms to correct issues of corruption, inequity, abuse of power, and other problems that have plagued the NOPD for years. A labor status report would show that the agreement hampered the retention and recruitment of officers who dislike being written up for infractions. The vast majority of the city will blame twice-elected Mayor Cantrell for the issues with law enforcement and crime in the city.